All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, hello and welcome to our Introduction to Atlassian Analytics webinar. We're so glad you're able to join us today for this overview of Atlassian Analytics. My name is Brad Wood. I'm a senior consultant and Atlassian Certified Professional with Valiantys, and we are an Atlassian Platinum Solutions partner. And today we're going to walk through Atlassian Analytics to highlight many of its strengths, its capabilities, some use cases, and a lot more. So before we get started, a little bit about Valiantys. Like I mentioned, we're a Platinum Solutions partner of Atlassian. We offer consulting and licensing services across the entire Atlassian suite of products for organizations of all shapes and sizes, anywhere in the world and for any platform, including cloud and data center. We've got extensive insight and understanding of Atlassian tools, undiluted focus and skill sets, and proven capability at every level. We're 100% dedicated to the Atlassian ecosystem. We've been the Atlassian Partner of the Year 13 times. We've worked with over 65 of the Fortune 500, global Fortune 500 organizations. We also have a full stack development center that works on custom solutions and integrations. We are Atlassian's first global partner, and we provide 24/7 global coverage with over 600 team members. Some of the services that we provide at Valiantys include consulting, licensing, integration and development, managed services, and training like this webinar, just to name a few. And you can find more information on the services we provide at valiantys.com/services. Speaking of trainings, we have a lot more training offerings than just our webinars. We have extensive training classes on a number of other Atlassian products, like our Jira software, our Confluence, and our Jira Service Management boot camps. Our boot camps are multiple day courses that are focused on retention, and they're interactive workshops designed to leave you confident in your understanding and use of the tools and processes. And I think I just saw in the chat, but you can find more information on our upcoming boot camps and webinars and other training offerings by visiting valiantys.com/training, or you can scan this QR code that you see on the screen now. We also have a half-day analytics workshop that is a deep dive into configurations within analytics and some more advanced topics as well. That's also listed on our training website. And then lastly, you can visit us on YouTube for even more Atlassian-focused content, tips and tricks, product updates, recordings of previous webinars, and a whole lot more. And you can just search for Valiantys YouTube or search for us within YouTube, or visit this link here that you see on the screen to navigate over to our YouTube page. All right, so let's talk about our agenda for today's demonstration. We are going to review Atlassian Analytics through the following topics. So we're starting here in our introduction. We're going to cover what is Atlassian Analytics and who can benefit from it. We're going to move on to the data lake. So where does the data come from and how is it connected to the tool? We'll talk about dashboards. So how can we visualize the data once it's connected? We'll talk about charts, which is how we can filter the data to provide useful insights. We'll move on to sharing. How can we share the data from analytics with the appropriate audience? We'll talk about permissions, who can perform which functions within analytics. We'll cover exports. So how can we export the data from analytics to another location? And if time allows, we will do some Q&A at the end of the session here. And I do encourage you to use the chat or the Q&A within Zoom. If you'd like to ask any questions, feel free to post those whenever. You don't need to wait until the end of the webinar, and I will address those as time allows. All right, so Atlassian Analytics, what is it and who is it for? Atlassian Analytics is Atlassian's data visualization and reporting tool that can pull data from Atlassian products through the Atlassian data lake connected to Atlassian Cloud sites. It's available at the enterprise tier in Atlassian Cloud sites. And analytics is powered by the Atlassian Data Lake, which connects to Jira Software, Jira Service Management, Jira Work Management, Jira Product Discovery, Confluence, and Operations products. And it can even connect to Jira Align via Enterprise Insights, To do this, that does require Enterprise Insights to be installed on your Jira Align instance. It can even connect to non-Atlassian data sources such as Snowflake, Microsoft SQL Server, and more. We'll look at how that is configured here during this session. Each Atlassian product has its own set of tables and columns in the Atlassian Data Lake that users can choose from to group and manipulate the data within the charts and dashboards in Atlassian Analytics. So it's really powered by the Data Lake. Atlassian Analytics does provide out-of-the-box templates for a variety of reporting use cases, including scaled agile teams, DevOps, IT service management, marketing, HR, and more. Users can create custom dashboards and charts via the user-friendly configuration known as Visual SQL, or you can use SQLite for more complex queries. And there's a number of charts to choose from, including tables, pie charts, bar charts, and more. And we'll look at a lot of that functionality during this webinar. So who can benefit from Atlassian Analytics? Well, maybe you're on a team looking to save time by monitoring your velocity and your blockers. Maybe your team leads want to optimize spend by prioritizing and allocating resources appropriately. Maybe your executives are interested in investing smarter by evaluating the impact and ROI of their team's work, enabling them to make better decisions driven by data. And even your Jira admins can benefit from Atlassian Analytics. Maybe they need to better manage their licensing with access to usage trends. So a lot of different use cases. We'll look at some of those in terms sort of framed in some dashboard templates here in just a little bit. But that's all for our introduction. And with that, let's jump into Atlassian Analytics. So here we are in just a demo environment of Atlassian Analytics. I'm going to start by showing a couple of dashboard examples, some fully built dashboards for specific use cases. And then we're going to kind of break it down, starting with the data lake, and then we'll look at how dashboards are configured, how charts are configured, and a whole lot more. But I want to kind of paint the picture and sort of show the end goal of where we're trying to get with this tool, and then we'll kind of build it back up from scratch. So with our dashboards, our end goal is to create well-structured dashboards and charts that display the relevant data for our audience. So again, let's look at some custom dashboards that our team has put together. We're going to start with our initiatives dashboard. And the goal here is to take a high-level look at all of the initiatives within our organization, useful for executives who need that 10,000-foot view of the big picture items within the organization and the data related to them. In our first section here, our initiatives overview, we see several different charts. We see open initiatives, blocked initiatives, done, and canceled. So just a simple count of the initiatives that meet that criteria. We then see initiatives by phase. So how many of our initiatives are in the to-do status category, in progress, and done. And then we've got a couple charts here built on some custom fields, so investment type and benefit type, and we can see the pie charts here. And also you can see there's a number of different chart types available in analytics, and we'll look at all of those here in just a little bit. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see some tables, so initiative details by status. So we're breaking down what we saw in our previous charts a little bit further. So initiatives in flight or any of our initiatives in progress. And we can see all of these different columns here with relative information. So the summary, the actual status that that initiative is currently in, the due date, a custom field strategic driver, and then if there's a team associated with that. Notice in this table I could search as well. So that's really handy when you are using the table chart types in your dashboards. We've got the same or a similar chart here, initiatives ready for work. So anything that is in the to-do status category, and then initiatives in review as well. I want to kind of re-mention, you can pull custom fields into your charts. We saw that at the beginning. We see it here with strategic driver. So you can leverage your custom fields in your dashboards and your charts. Here we've got initiative drill down. So our first chart is all open initiatives. And you notice if I scroll down just a little bit, these two charts are not showing any data currently. But if I click into one of these initiatives, for example, I'll click on HRW-208, we now see data populated in the initiative child issues chart. So these are all of the children associated with this initiative. Again, HRW-208, we see that listed here in what's called a control, and we'll talk about controls a little bit later. And I see all of my child issues here. And I can drill down even further from one of those child issues, and we see in the chart epic child issues, we've configured the same kind of setup here. So this issue, HRW-209, here's all the children of that particular epic. So we can see kind of a full roll up from all of these stories or tasks to the epic to the initiative that they're associated with. And those are being powered by what's called a drill down, and we'll get into that a little bit later if time allows. So we'll move on to another chart, or excuse me, a dashboard example. We'll look at our resource management example. And the idea here is for managers or team leads to look at issues by assignee, the status those are in, issues by team, etc., and really looking at all of our resources and what they're currently assigned to in our various Atlassian products. So we start with issues by team, and we can see a breakdown of the total number of issues assigned to all of our different teams by percentage. So Team Charlie being at the top and webinar demo team being at the bottom. If I click into any of these wedges in my pie chart, and actually if I hover over these, I'll get a total count of those issues first. But if I click into, let's say, Team Charlie, I can drill down into all of those issues, and I see the entire 111 issues that we saw over here in this chart. So I can get some more information. I can get the issue key, the summary, and the status category. If I scroll down a little bit to my issues by assignee chart, I don't see any data in here currently because it's connected to a control that I need to add a value to. So in this case, I'm going to choose Team Charlie again, and I'll let this populate. And we can see of the 111 issues associated with this team, only 5 of them have an assignee. We can see 2 are assigned to Vicky, 2 are assigned to Brian, and 1 is assigned to Steve. Maybe I want to know what those issues actually are. I'll click on this bar and I'll populate that into this chart. So now I can see some more information on the issues that are assigned to Vicky on that team, and I can actually get the issue key and figure out what she's actually working on. So we can see here, again, a breakdown of all the issues assigned to a team, and then within that team, which issues are assigned to which team member. We'll look at one more example, and this is our Jira admin dashboard. I mentioned this a little bit in the introduction, but we can pull data directly related to our Atlassian tools in analytics, such as Jira, JSM, Confluence, etc. And we can help our admins monitor the state of the tools and make better decisions related to the tools. So again, we've got sort of an overview section here, and these are all pretty self-explanatory. Total Jira projects, average issues per project. We do the same thing with JSM, and then we've got total Confluence spaces and the average number of pages per space. And again, this is more of that high level 10,000 foot view of the state of our Atlassian tools. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see a breakdown on our Jira software projects. So this first chart is showing the top 10 Jira software projects by issue count. Again, we see that scaled Team Charlie project here. And if I click into this, I can see a drill down of issues by status. So your drill down doesn't have to be a table. It can be other chart types as well. And we're seeing that here with this pie chart. And again, we get our percentages over here and our total count of all of our different statuses in that pie chart. The same thing can be done for your bottom 10 software projects. So maybe you want to know, hey, which projects have the least number of issues? Are these still being used? Do we still need them, etc.? We can see some of these projects have a single issue in them, so perhaps those aren't needed. And again, I could click into these and drill down into that data a little bit further to see what those issues actually are. Maybe you have the created date or the updated date pull in, so you can make some more decisions based on those projects and see if they're actually needed anymore. We can do the same thing with Jira Service Management projects. So again, I could click into like IT Service Desk, for instance, and get a running table of all of the tickets in that project. And we can even do this with Confluence. So I could choose any of these Confluence spaces and get some information related to all the pages within that space. And we can see here we've pulled in day of updated at. So you can see a lot of these haven't been updated in maybe a year, maybe longer. So maybe that can help us make a decision of if we need this space anymore. In this case, it's probably still needed, but if it's a space that isn't getting used or updated very much, maybe that can help you gain some insight again to if you still need that Confluence space. And again, we can do that from the bottom as well. So we can see all of these different personal spaces have a single issue, or excuse me, a single page in them. So maybe we don't need those. And Atlassian Analytics can help us make that decision. Lastly, we can do some other system analysis. So we can look at fields by issue count. So here is just a running list of all of the fields in our instance and the number of issues that have a value in those fields. So I can sort this ascending or descending. Obviously, these fields that have many issues with values, we definitely need to keep. But if I sort from the bottom, maybe we don't need some of these fields that only have a single issue that is currently using them. So you can make some informed decisions on those, and it can help you populate that list really quickly of the system and or custom fields that are hardly being used. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, we have inactive users. This is just simply a list of all the inactive users in our instance. For the sake of this demo, I'm just pulling in their account IDs, but you can actually pull in the first and last name of those users into your charts. And you can get that list of inactive users and decide if you want to completely remove them from your Atlassian system. So those are just a few examples of some fully built dashboards for some specific use cases. Hopefully that's got the wheels spinning a little bit in terms of how you might use Atlassian Analytics for some of your unique organizational or business needs. We can really tailor these to our audience, and I think that's one of the important things to keep in mind when you're building a dashboard. So let's go back to the main page, and we're going to look at how our dashboards and charts are actually being populated, which is via the Atlassian Data Lake. So we talked about it a little bit in the intro. Atlassian Analytics connects to the Atlassian Data Lake, and it lets you choose which products and which instances you want to pull data from. The Atlassian Data Lake aggregates and stores data from Atlassian tools and connected third-party tools. You do need to be an org admin to create a data connection in Analytics. And so if I go over here to data, you can see here that we've got several data sources configured. And for the sake of this demo, we are going to look at our connection to the Atlassian Data Lake. You can search all of your data sources here. You can filter them by the data source type if you need to. And then we see here the name that's been given, the data source type, the scope of the data that's being pulled in, when was it last edited, and we can even view the access to this data lake connection directly from our data area in Analytics. I'm going to click into our Atlassian Data Lake connection, and we can review a lot of different information here as well. On the General tab, we'll just see basically that general information, including the name. We can see some usage information down here, which active charts are actually using this data connection. So if you don't have any active charts that are using a data connection, you might not need that data connection anymore, but we can see here this one is being used pretty actively, and we can tell that from this General tab. If we head over to Access, we can control who can access the data within our data source if needed by selecting Restrict Who Can Query Only Specific People. And you can see we've done that here, and we've restricted this to a handful of users. You can also just open it up to anybody with access to a product with an enterprise plan and Atlassian Analytics. So your org admins are going to need to grant that access to analytics. It's like any other product. but as long as your users have at least one enterprise plan, or excuse me, one access to one product under an enterprise plan and access to analytics, you can just open it up to everybody basically. We can also assign some permissions here to specific people or groups, and we can do that when we are using the only specific people restriction. And we've got can query, so basically can view charts and create charts and modify them and use the controls, etc. Can manage, give some additional permissions to those users. If we go to connection, this is where we can view the products that are included in our data connection. So in this case, we're connecting to several different products. We see Jira Service Management, and that's broken down even further into assets and operations. We see Confluence, Jira, JPD, and Jira Work Management. And then we see some details here of what's actually being pulled into our data connection. You can include or exclude certain projects or spaces, certain asset schemas. You don't have to pull in everything in your products. If you've got some sensitive projects, let's say an HR project, for example, that not everybody should be able to view the data, you might want to exclude those from certain data connections, and therefore that data wouldn't be pulled in to the dashboards that are using that connection. So something to keep about there. We see some different additional information here regarding scope of data. One thing to note is when new project spaces or even asset schemas are created in one of your products, you may need to update your data connection, especially if you're excluding anything. If you're just saying just pull in everything, it should pull in all of your data. But if you're limiting the scope, you may need to update your data connections periodically when new items are created. So do keep that in mind. If we go to schema, this is where we can choose from which products, which tables do we want to pull. So there are so many different tables in all of our different Atlassian products, and if some of these are just completely irrelevant and we don't think we're ever going to need them, we can make them invisible by simply unchecking this box. And then we have some auditing information here. So the query log, we can see when a query was last run, and we see what that query is in SQL. We've got some additional information on the queries tab, and the change history tab is very helpful as well. We can see things that were changed in our schemas, who were they updated by. So in this case, Atlassian Analytics updated several different tables and when that change took place. So you do have several different sort of audit log capabilities from your data connection. If I go back to the data section, selecting add data source will bring up all the different third-party data sources that I can bring into Atlassian Analytics. So maybe your other BI tools that you're using. We can see some Amazon products here. We can see some Google products. We've got Microsoft SQL Server. We've got Snowflake. And data can be shared from analytics to your third-party tools as well. So it's not a one-way sync necessarily. You can share data between them and from your Atlassian Data Lake connection to your third-party tools. Do note that by connecting a data share directly to a third-party tool, all the product data you've included in that data share, which we just looked at, is going to be available to anyone who has access to that data share connection, and therefore might provide access to data they don't normally have access to within Atlassian tools. So anytime you're making a data connection, either within analytics or from analytics to another tool, or even from another tool to analytics, keep in mind the data that you're pulling and make sure that the audience who's going to be able to access that is appropriate and they're seeing everything they should see and nothing that they should not see. So that's it for the data lake and how this data is actually coming in to Atlassian Analytics. We're going to move on now to dashboards. And we saw some examples of these earlier, but dashboards are collections of charts and controls, which are all basically filters that visually display our data. So here we are in the dashboard section, and I'll just walk through the UI here quickly. We have a search bar here to quickly search for the dashboard you might need to locate. We have some filtering options here. So if I click all dashboards, I could filter just on those that were created by me. I can star dashboards. We really like this feature. You would just click the star icon next to any of your dashboards to star them, and then it's basically a custom filter for you. And then we can also view our archived or our trashed dashboards if we need to in the all categories drop down. So dashboards can be added to categories to further organize the list. This is a lot like categories in Jira for your projects. So you can create a category. So for example, I could click this webinar category, and then I'm limiting my view to just the dashboards that have been added to that category. Then we've got some other sorting options over here on the right as well. So we can sort by last viewed by anyone. So we can see, hey, is anybody looking at this dashboard? And then the same thing with edited. So sort by last edited or sort by last edited by anyone. We also have this card view, and this is just visually just a different view. So you can actually see a preview of what's in your charts. So this can be helpful, especially if you are looking through a long list of dashboards, and you may prefer this to see, oh yeah, this is the one I need. So that can be helpful to locate your dashboard very quickly. And then we can create a new dashboard by simply clicking this Create Dashboard button. When we're creating a new dashboard, these can be created by a template, or they can be custom made. They can be, we can start with a blank dashboard, so start from scratch with an empty dashboard, or we can even import using JSON. But let's try use a template, and we'll take a look at all of the different templates that come out of the box with Atlassian Analytics. So the templates can be, they apply to specific products. Some of them do anyway. Some of them span your entire product portfolio. When we're creating this, we can filter these. So these are the templates that have been created out of the box from Atlassian. We can actually create our own custom dashboard templates as well, and we would see those by clicking on My Organization. Atlassian does launch new dashboard templates periodically as well, so you'll see more of these as time goes on. When you're creating your new dashboard, you do need to select the data source. So in this case, I would just choose the one that we were looking at previously. And then you can filter this even further by product. So you can see we've got templates for Confluence, we've got templates for Jira, and we've got templates for Jira Service Management. Once I find the dashboard that I want, I would just simply click Create to create that. And then likewise, if you want to just create a blank dashboard, all you would do is select blank and then select Create, and then a new blank dashboard with no data in it and no charts and no custom configurations would be created, and then you can build that from scratch. So I'm going to go back to one of our previously built dashboards, and we'll just talk through the general UI of navigating an actual dashboard a little bit. So we can see the title here. If I need to change this for some reason, I would just click here and make my edits. We can grab a link directly to the dashboard by clicking Copy Link to Dashboard, and we can paste that in chat or email or wherever we need it. Over on the right-hand side, if I want to refresh the data manually in this dashboard, I could just click Refresh Data. I can star the dashboard. We saw that from the dashboards area earlier, but I can also star it directly from within the dashboard. I can copy the dashboard if I want to copy it and make a copy and then make some edits. I could do that from here. One thing I really like to call out here too is the presentation mode. So I like this for presenting to large groups. And basically, if you click this, the chart will be expanded and our navigation section on the right-hand side goes away. And now we're utilizing the entire width of our display to show our dashboard. So I really like the presentation view for that purpose. And then all of our different configuration items are over here on the right-hand side, and we are going to walk through all of those in just a second, starting with charts. So we know our dashboards consist of charts, and our charts are visualizations of the data. Atlassian has a ton of chart templates. We saw the dashboard templates, but there are a lot of chart templates as well. And if we click chart, we can see all of those here. So we have the search bar again. We can filter by all of our different product lines. We can create a custom chart, which is just a blank chart. And then we have all these different chart templates. So these can be really good starting points for you if you are learning how to configure charts in Atlassian Analytics. You can create one of these charts from a template and navigate to the back end of it and see how it's configured. It may be configured with the SQLite that we talked about earlier, or the visual SQL mode. And you can use that to kind of learn how to create your own custom charts. So this is really helpful. If you click on any of these, you will get a visual preview of what this chart is configured to look like as well. So it's also a good starting point if you think this is pretty close to what I need, but I need to customize this a little bit. You can save yourself a lot of work by spinning up a chart from a template. And I'm not going to create a new chart right now, but that is how you would do it. When I hover over an already configured chart, I get some options here, such as Insights. This is powered by Atlassian Intelligence. And if I click on Insights, I get a written description of the data that is in that chart. So if you have Atlassian Intelligence configured to be enabled in your instance, you can use this and get some insights. And then you can give Atlassian some feedback here if this is a good response or a bad response. I can comment on this chart by simply just clicking this speech bubble and adding my comment here. And then I would click comment. And now we can see that there's a comment here. And you can use this kind of like inline comments for, if you've used this in other software, collaborative document creation or something like that. You can use this as maybe a note to somebody like, I need you to update XYZ thing. And then once it's updated, you can click resolve. And I can edit or delete this comment directly from it as well. And if I click resolve, the comment goes away. We can also generate a link to the chart. So you can copy that to your clipboard if you want to link directly to a single chart. And if I click on the three dots, I can edit the chart and edit its settings. We'll look at some of that here in just a little bit. I can copy the chart. I can move it to another dashboard. I can delete it. I can refresh the chart data. I also like the expand chart. So this will kind of expand the chart to be full screen, and that can also be helpful when you are presenting if you need some more real estate for one of your charts. And there are some other, we can view the chart data, and we can actually download the chart from here as well. So a lot of great options here. Let's go to edit chart. And we'll actually look at the chart configuration now. So I mentioned there's two different ways to configure charts. So we've got our visual SQL mode, and then we've got the SQL editor itself. You can see how to switch between those two right here. For this demo, we will be focusing on the visual SQL mode, and that's how this chart has been configured. Excuse me. Visual SQL is a codeless interface, and it can be used to create queries by adding the columns you need and then the filters necessary for your chart. One thing I will show really quickly is over in the SQL editor, we can leverage Atlassian Intelligence again. So I could type in here and say, show me this data filtered by XYZ thing and generate that, and then I can create my charts that way. So that is an option there as well to utilize Atlassian Intelligence. When we're configuring our charts in Visual SQL mode, you're going to start by adding the columns that you need, and then you'll add filters if you need to filter that data in any specific manner. So we can see here we've added two columns, the issue ID and then the name of the team. And in this case, and in any case, when you're building a chart in the Visual SQL mode, you can add group and aggregate functions. So in this case, we've said for issue ID, count of unique, and then we want to just group by the team names, and we see some more information here. So you do have some other options here, your count of all, min, max, unaggregated, etc. And those are all available for each of your columns that you're pulling in. And if you need additional columns, you can just click add column, and then we can see all of those tables that we talked about previously from our Atlassian Data Lake connection. So if I click into issue, for instance, I could pull a variety of information from here. And again, this is where you could pull your custom fields and all of your other data from your Atlassian tools. And we can add multiple queries to our charts if we need to combine data from multiple sources, or we need to apply different filters to different slices of data. We can do that. And then to filter your data, you can click add filter, and then we would select a field to filter. So we could say issue ID is one of, is not one of, etc., and add some filtering options here. So you do have the ability to reduce the scope of the data that you're pulling into your chart to only be the information that you need and not be too much noise for your chart. We have several different chart types that we can configure in analytics to visualize our data. Once our chart has been configured, I'm just going to run this query again really quickly, and we can see below we've got our table with the data that it's pulling, and it's pulling it into this pie chart. We've selected the pie chart as our chart type for this particular example, but you have a number of different options here. The auto function will choose a chart type for you based on the data that you're pulling in. And then we can see here table, funnel, area, bar chart, and a whole lot more. Anything that's grayed out means that the data table that you've generated from your query does not meet the requirements to create that type of chart. And if you select something like, let's say, bar line, we can see the data is incompatible with bar line charts, and we would need to make some changes to this data table in order to use that type of chart. I'll just go back to pie chart. And in this case, I do meet the criteria for a bar chart, so I can simply change this from the pie chart to the bar chart and see how this is going to be visualized. And maybe I like this more than the pie chart. I can change this to a bar chart really quickly. In our table, or our result table at the bottom, we have a number of additional formulas that we can add. We can click formula column to do some kind of mathematical formula, or any of these options that we see here. So add, subtract, multiply, etc. We can utilize Atlassian Intelligence again to help us write a formula if we need to. We can reorder our columns if we need maybe the name column we want on the y-axis and not the count of issues. We can just reorder them by clicking this. We can sort our rows. We've got some more group and aggregate functions, and we can even add additional filters once the query has been run. So you've got a lot of different ways to manipulate the table once it's been generated. And then if we click over here on this settings, chart settings cog, we've got additional customizable options within our chart settings. So we can give the chart a name, we can change the font size, we could give it a subtitle. We've got some other options here, and this is going to be based on the chart type that you've selected. So I can add, let's say, percentage, for instance, and get some additional information. And that's not very useful, so I'm just going to unselect that and keep my bar chart the way it is. But you get a nice preview here too, so you don't have to commit to any of your changes before deciding if they're useful or not. We can change some options about the legend. If we do have one of those in here, we can add titles and labels to our axes, so our x-axis or our y-axis. We can limit the amount of data that's shown too, so we can add minimum and maximum values, and that will update here on the y-axis if we do that. We can change colors if we want to, or use custom colors. We've got some, we can add like value labels, for instance, to our bars. So now we see the total count of the issues for each team in each of these bars. And then there's some advanced configurations here as well, such as drill down and annotation, which we do not cover in this webinar, but we do cover in that workshop that I mentioned previously. And again, you can get all of the information on that workshop at valiantys.com/training. All right, so we're just going to click cancel and abandon our changes. We're going to go back to our dashboard, and we're going to talk about the rest of these configuration options with the remainder of the time that we have for this webinar. So we've seen controls a little bit, and controls can be connected to one or more charts to filter the data. We've got several in this example. Controls are interactive elements that change the way the data looks on a dashboard. They allow for multiple users to use the same dashboard, but display the data in a way that's contextually relevant to them. So for example, if I'm on Team Charlie and I want to know about all the issues my team's working on, I could use this dashboard. Maybe I'm on the HR team. I could also use this as well. And I can change the value in this control, which is changing the values that we see in this chart. There are various control types available. So this one is just a simple drop down, and you can click into the control itself to manually update those values. They don't need to be utilized in this drill down manner that we're seeing here. But if I click on control, we can see we've got drop downs. We could create a date slider, a calendar, text input, date bucket, etc. So there are a lot of different options with the controls. I mentioned the drill down, and so the way that's configured is this control is selected as the drill down for this chart, and then it's associated with this chart as a filter. And another cool thing we can do that we didn't really touch on earlier is we can actually change our values in our tables to be hyperlinks. So we can see here, if I click on this, it'll actually open the issue in Jira. So that can be a really helpful way to connect the tools as well. And we can see here, here's that issue that is included in our table. If we head over here to the content section, this is how we're adding our titles and our different sections in some of our other dashboards. So let's actually go to our admin dashboard. And we can see here we've added our company logo, we've added this info panel, we've got some dividers here, and this is all considered content in your dashboard. So if I click on content, I can choose a place to add this. We'll just add it right here in the corner for an example. And by default, it's just a text field, very similar to Confluence. If you're using that for anything, we've got all of our different text styles and formatting options. We can add a bullet list or a numbered list here. And then if we click on the Insert Elements section, this is where we can add, a date. We can add a divider, which we saw. We can use emoji. The info panel, which is what you're seeing right now with organization overview. We can create some columns here, and you can paste images in here as well, which is what we've done with our company logo. And along with that, we've got the comments section, and comments can be added to individual charts like we saw earlier, or we can comment on the dashboard as a whole. So if I click on comments, this is where I can add a comment for the entire dashboard. I would just type it in here and click reply. And then now this comment has been added. And if I want to edit or delete this comment, I would just click the three dots and do that. So you can add a comment to the entire dashboard. Maybe if you need to communicate with the person who created the dashboard and make some suggestions or ask some clarifying questions, you can do that with the comments section. All right, we're going to move on to sharing, permissions, and exports. So dashboard managers, excuse me, can update various settings for their dashboard, can grant other users access to the dashboard, and control subscriptions to the dashboards. One thing to note is that not all users will necessarily have access to all dashboards by default. Like we mentioned, access to analytics must first be granted by an org admin. Then each dashboard can be customized in terms of its accessibility by granting this to anyone with access to analytics or specific groups. So we're going to come over here to settings, and we'll look at access. So we can see here, very similar to the access settings that we looked at previously. And we can, we can restrict to only specific people, or we can open it up to anybody who has access to Atlassian Analytics. And again, we can add people here or a group. And we've got 3 different permissions. So we have view, edit, and manage. View grants the ability to view and interact with the dashboard. So you can make selections in the controls, you can add comments and download the dashboard. The edit permission grows upon that by giving the ability to edit the dashboard and its settings. So you'd be able to add and edit charts, controls, and content. You can move things around in the dashboard, and you can access the general controls and access tabs in the settings area, which is where we are now. And then lastly, can manage. That simply means you can manage all aspects of the dashboard, and you can access all tabs of the dashboard settings, and you can delete or archive the dashboard. So you do need to be a dashboard manager to delete or archive the dashboard. We can configure subscriptions to our dashboard. So it's a little bit like configuring a filter subscription in Jira. So we can send scheduled reports to keep our teams updated on the dashboard's data. This can be helpful to keep our stakeholders informed without requiring them to log into analytics. So we simply click add subscription. We'd give it a name. We select a frequency, so daily, weekly, or monthly. What time of the day do we want to send that? We can select the value that we want in the controls for this subscription. So what are we going to see in our charts when this is sent? Choose a format to send this, so PDF, CSV, or both. We can also include an inline image to that email, and then add your recipients, and that is on a user-by-user basis. And those users are going to need to have access to your dashboard in order to receive the subscription. So that can be really helpful. Over here in the Activity tab, this is kind of an audit log for your dashboard. So dashboard managers are able to view this area. We're able to export this, and we can search for activity. We can download all this activity by clicking the button here. One note is that activity logs are only stored for the previous year, so 365 days in the past up until the current day. So you'll only see audit logs for that period of time. Over here in the export area, we can export our dashboard as a PDF, a CSV, or a JSON. Again, maybe you want to export as a PDF and attach it to an email or paste it somewhere else. You could do that. You can export the raw data as a CSV and then export as JSON. This is how you can export your dashboard and then import it to another analytics workspace, which we saw earlier when we were creating our dashboard. We can create using a JSON file, and this is how you would generate that JSON file. So a couple different options there. We're going to go back to our dashboard settings really quickly. We saw most of these tabs, but let's review the rest of these. In our general area, this is where we can edit the title and the description of our dashboard. We can update the URL slug here, so we can actually and get a preview of it right here. So you can, if you want a specific URL for your dashboard, you can update that right here. The categories, which we saw earlier in our dashboard's homepage, are actually created and assigned from this area within our dashboard. So we can see this category is associated with this dashboard. We can select a different category if we want to, or we can actually just type in here and say category, and then we could create a new category directly from our dashboard. So that's how those are configured and created. We've got some other options here to convert the time zone of our dashboard, and then we've got some additional data refreshness settings here. We can also move the dashboard to the trash or archive it as dashboard managers. If we head up to the controls section, This is going to be a comprehensive list of all of the controls that are configured within our dashboard. We can see the name of the controls, the type, and we can see a list of the current values that are associated with those controls. In this case, we don't have anything selected in any of our controls. Under the actions section, we can highlight connections. So this will actually draw a border around all of the charts that are connected to this specific control. So if you're not sure or you're doing some troubleshooting in your charts or your dashboards, this is one way you can quickly find all of the charts that a specific control is being used to filter. We can edit the control from here, and we can also delete the control from here. And the other cool thing you can do is reset all the values from here. So if you're doing a presentation and you've manipulated your data and your charts and you just want to go back to square one, you can click reset values. And if you have any default values set in your controls, this will reset those back to the default value. In this case, we haven't configured those, so it would just clear the value of our controls. So one other thing I'd like to show is you can actually embed a dashboard into a Confluence space. So I'm going to head over to Confluence really quickly. And we'll see what this looks like. Give it just a second to load. And here's that same dashboard that we saw earlier. And all of our content is here. So our logo and our info panel, all of our charts are here. Our controls are here, and they are fully functional. So if I click on one of these again, I can get that drill down chart to populate. And so this is a really great way to, again, if your users are used to reviewing information in Confluence and they don't want to navigate over to Analytics, you can build your charts in Analytics and then embed them into Confluence. Users are still going to need access to Analytics to view the data over in Confluence, but this can be a great way to see that data in maybe a more familiar environment that your users are, again, accustomed to using. And it's very simple to just paste the link to your dashboard in Confluence, and you can choose to display it in this manner. Oh, and then lastly, we've got this share button that I think I overlooked, and this will take us directly, again, to that access section that we saw earlier. So that's another quick way to just go directly to the access section if you are a dashboard manager. We've got a little bit of time left. I'm going to take us to just one more dashboard. And this is a dashboard. All the other dashboards we've looked at were custom built by our team at Valiantys and were built from scratch. This is just a quick example of another dashboard that was built from a template. And this is the Analytics Request Management Overview template. And I mentioned this earlier about charts, but I want to mention this about dashboards as well. Starting from a template can be really helpful. So with our charts, we can learn a lot about how the charts are configured, or we can use them as a starting point. And the dashboards are no different. So this was created from a template again, but I can change anything I want in here now that I've done this. So if I don't like one of these charts, for instance, I could simply delete it or move it around or edit it, etc. And I think these are great examples of ways to utilize different chart types to paint a picture of some kind of thing that you need to report on in your organization and in your environment. And using these templates is a great way to get started. So we can see a number of different chart types in here. We can see horizontal bar charts, for instance. There's controls in here. There's requests created versus resolved as a line graph. So you can really get an idea of the possibilities in Atlassian Analytics by exploring the templates. And I think this is, again, a great way to get yourself started and make the tweaks that you need to make from there. So, of course, the sky's kind of the limit with this tool. You can build from scratch and build any chart that you can imagine using the data that you have in your data lake connection. But I do think these are helpful starting points, especially when you're first starting out with the analytics, to build some quick reports. And these may be all you need. Maybe this is all the data you need for your reporting needs. Use the templates. They're there. And the same is true of charts when you're building those as well. All right. So that's it for our demo this morning. I'm going to jump over to the chat and just see if we have any questions in the Q&A. How do we join multiple tables and use the aggregate function? There are some joins you can add in the configurations for your charts. And like I mentioned before, you can also do multiple queries. So query 1 could be utilizing tables A, B, and C. Then query 2 is D, E, and F. And then you can join those two queries together. And if you're familiar with other BI reporting tools, all of the typical join types that you are familiar seeing are there. So join outer, join inner. The table will be generated with columns from both of your queries, and then you just have to decide which of that data you want to use to visualize in your charts. That is a great question. We cover that a little bit more in detail in the workshop. Again, that information is available at valiantys.com/training. It is possible to use custom fields in analytics. I see this question here. It's a little trickier to configure than your system fields, but you can pull those in. We saw those in a couple of examples this morning where we were pulling some custom fields on our initiatives dashboard. That's a great question, and the answer is yes, you can pull your custom fields into analytics. And then I see a question here, how can we show easy BI dashboard data in Atlassian Analytics? I'm not 100% sure if there is a connection available between those two tools, but we can take that away as a research option and get some information on that. And speaking of that, I see some information in the chat here. So again, quick reminder on that workshop that is coming up in a couple weeks, I believe. So check out our training page for all that information, and let's connect. So if you scan this QR code, you'll get my my contact information. That's also available in the chat. You can reach out to me via email or connect with me on LinkedIn if you have questions related to analytics or any other Atlassian tools. Would be happy to answer your questions, follow up with you on anything we covered today, including that question on the connection to EasyBI. Feel free to send me a note and we can connect there. And then just another quick reminder on our YouTube page, we've got some fun tips and tricks videos on analytics posted there. So get a little bit more into drill downs and some other configuration elements. So definitely check us out over on YouTube, and the information for that is in the chat as well. All right, so that's going to do it for this morning. Thanks so much for attending our Atlassian Analytics Fundamentals webinar. I hope you enjoyed this course. I hope you learned something new about the tool, and I hope you saw how it could be useful for your team or organization. Like I mentioned, if you have any follow-up questions regarding this or anything else Atlassian related, contact me via email or LinkedIn, both of which are in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me at any time. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.